Hey everyone! Tonight you are going to try to sleep while the earth explodes above your head. It is sometime after midnight on the Western Front. Your boots are wet. Your coat smells of mud, smoke, sweat, and the paraffin rubbed into its seams to discourage lice. A rat has just moved near your leg. Somewhere beyond the darkness, an artillery gun fires. Several seconds later, the shell arrives with a sound too large to belong to the night. The trench shakes. Soil falls from the roof of the dugout. The man beside you opens his eyes, listens, and closes them again. He has learned to sleep through this. But how did soldiers rest while shells burst above them? Sentries shouted warnings, water filled their boots, and an attack might begin before dawn. The answer was not courage alone. It was exhaustion, routine, rotation, improvised shelter, and the extraordinary ability of the human body to take sleep wherever war left a few unguarded minutes. Before we begin, if these quiet journeys into the stranger realities of history help you unwind, you can leave a like and subscribe. And tell me where in the world you are listening from and what time it is there. Now lower the lights, settle into your pillow, and let us enter the trench. The year is 1916. You are a British infantry soldier serving somewhere along the Western Front. Your exact experience would vary enormously according to army, sector, season, rank, battle, and the condition of the line. A French soldier at Verdun, a German soldier on the Somme, a Canadian at Vimy Ridge, and a British soldier near Ypres did not sleep in identical trenches. Some positions were deep and carefully engineered. Others were collapsing scratches in flooded ground. Tonight, your battalion is holding a frontline sector. That does not mean every man remains here for months without movement. Units commonly rotate between the front line, support trenches, reserve positions, and rest areas behind the line. The rhythm is imperfect and can break down during battle, but it matters. Continuous life in the most exposed trench would destroy a unit quickly. You arrived after dark because daylight movement attracts enemy observation and artillery. The relief was supposed to be quiet and orderly. It was neither. Men carrying rifles, ammunition, rations, tools, coils of wire, water containers, and personal equipment moved along communication trenches that turned repeatedly across the landscape. A wrong turn could send a section toward the wrong company. A collapsed wall narrowed the passage. Mud pulled at boots. Someone whispered an insult at a duckboard that had shifted beneath him. The men you replaced looked older than they had several days ago. They gave hurried information. The parapet had been damaged near the left bay. A sniper watched the broken tree. The enemy machine gun opposite the sunken road had been active at dawn. The listening post needed relief at 2. Water was rising in the lower dugout. One man had seen a rat dragging something that should not be described before breakfast. Then the outgoing unit disappeared into the darkness, taking its experience and leaving you with the position. You cannot simply lie down. Frontline nights are working nights. Darkness offers concealment. Wiring parties repair barbed wire in no man's land. Carrying parties bring ammunition, food, timber, sandbags, and water forward. Patrols crawl beyond the trench. Engineers strengthen defenses. Men drain flooded sections. rebuild parapets, fill sandbags, and repair damage caused during the day. The enemy is active for the same reason. Flares rise into the sky and turn the landscape a pale, unnatural color. Everyone outside the trench freezes until the light fades. Rifle shots crack. Machine guns fire short bursts into suspected movement. Artillery sends shells toward crossroads, communication trenches, and positions that observers mapped earlier. Your first lesson is simple. Night is not when the front line goes to sleep. Night is when much of its work begins. The trench itself is not one long open ditch. It bends and turns so that a shell or enemy soldier cannot fire along its entire length. The wall facing the enemy is the parapet. The rear wall is the parados. Sandbags, earth, timber, corrugated iron, wickerwork, and whatever material is available help support the sides. A raised ledge called the fire step allows a soldier to stand high enough to look and fire over the parapet. In some accounts, men also try to sleep while sitting against it or crouched below it when no better space exists. Imperial war museums preserved the voice of one veteran who remembered sleeping by sitting on the fire step. Comfort was not part of the design. Below or behind the trench may be dugouts. Their quality varies dramatically. A shallow shelter cut into the wall might protect you from weather and some fragments, but collapse under a direct hit. A deeper dugout reached by steps can offer bunks, lamps, tables, and a greater sense of safety. German positions were sometimes built deeper and more substantially than British frontline dugouts, though conditions varied across the war and battlefield. Officers may have access to better shelters. Headquarters dugouts can contain maps, telephones, benches, and bunks. Rank does not make artillery polite, but it often improves the chance of a dry place to lie down. You are an ordinary soldier. Your sleeping place tonight is a narrow recess supported by timber. A rough bunk occupies one wall. The lower bunk is already claimed by a man whose cough has become part of the unit's equipment. You take the upper space. The bunk is not a bed in the modern sense. It may be boards, wire, sacking, or timber covered with a ground sheet and blanket. You keep most clothing on. Removing boots can be risky during an alert, and wet boots may shrink or stiffen. Yet sleeping in soaked boots damages feet. Men make choices according to conditions, orders, and how quickly they might need to move. Your pack becomes a pillow. A folded coat may support the head if the coat is not already being worn. A blanket offers warmth if it is dry, which is a generous assumption. Your rifle remains close. Equipment is arranged so that darkness will not hide what you need. Above you, men move along the trench. Their boots dislodge soil. Water drips. A telephone buzzes somewhere. The dugout smells of damp wood, candle smoke, tobacco, unwashed wool, leather, feet, and humanity compressed into too little air. This is the place in which you are expected to recover. Before sleep, there is stand to. Dawn and dusk are considered dangerous times because low light can conceal an attack. Units order every available man to be alert at the fire step, weapons ready. The ritual is called stand to. It happens before sunrise and again around sunset. At dawn, You leave whatever warmth you found and take your position. The sky gradually changes color over a landscape stripped of ordinary shape. Trees are broken, shell holes collect water. Wire lies in tangled belts. A ruined building may stand without a roof or interior, its remaining wall used as a reference point on maps. You watch for movement. Your hands are cold around the rifle. Sleep remains unfinished behind your eyes. Sometimes nothing happens. That does not make the ritual unnecessary. The possibility is the point. After stand 2, weapons are cleaned, reports made, and the morning routine begins. Rum may be issued in some British units and periods. Tea becomes a form of emotional infrastructure. Breakfast, when it reaches you, may be bread, biscuits, bacon, stew, jam, or something that has traveled through enough mud to lose its original personality. Then, if the sector is quiet and duties allow, some men may sleep. The front line often reverses ordinary time. Work happens at night. Alertness peaks around dawn. Daylight limits movement because enemy observers can see. Men who spent the night repairing wire or carrying supplies may rest after morning duties. But daylight does not guarantee quiet. Artillery observation improves. Snipers watch openings. Aircraft pass overhead. A trench mortar can drop a bomb with little warning. A working party may be ordered to repair damage. An inspection may occur at the precise moment your body finally gives up its argument with consciousness. Sleep arrives in fragments. Imagine lying down after 30 hours of interrupted work. At first, every sound demands interpretation. The distant heavy boom may be your own artillery firing from behind. A rising whistle may indicate an incoming shell. Experienced soldiers learn that different weapons create different sounds. Some shells pass overhead, some fall short, some land close enough to make the body react before the mind identifies them. Men develop a vocabulary for weapons. A small, fast shell may be called a whiz-bang. A large, slow projectile announces itself differently. Mortars, machine guns, rifle grenades, and aerial bombs each contribute to the front's mechanical weather. The ability to distinguish sound becomes part of survival. It also shapes sleep. A new arrival may flinch at every detonation. The veteran beside him remains still until one particular sound makes him move instantly. He is not fearless. He has learned which noises belong to the usual danger and which signal immediate danger. This learning is imperfect. Shells behave unpredictably. A quiet night can become a bombardment without warning. A familiar sound can end in catastrophe. Yet, the nervous system cannot remain at maximum alarm forever. Exhaustion forces it to prioritize. After enough time, men sleep through guns that would wake an entire modern neighborhood. They may wake when the guns suddenly stop. Silence can mean that artillery is shifting targets, that an attack is approaching, or that something has changed. The absence of expected noise becomes its own alarm. You close your eyes while shells pass at intervals. The dugout trembles. Dust falls onto your blanket. Someone mutters and turns. Your body learns the rhythm against its will. Then a shell lands close. The concussion punches the air. The lamp goes out. Timber creaks. Every man is awake before the earth finishes falling. Someone calls a name. Someone else finds the light. The entrance is checked. No direct hit. No collapse. No order to move. Within minutes, one man begins snoring again. You understand how soldiers slept under shell fire. They slept because the alternative was to remain awake until they could no longer function, and war did not pause to protect them from that collapse. Sleep deprivation is not a minor discomfort in combat. It slows reaction, damages judgment, narrows attention, alters mood, and makes simple tasks dangerous. A soldier must handle weapons, follow routes, interpret orders, recognize friendly movement, and respond under pressure. Fatigue turns every action into a potential mistake. Armies understood exhaustion even without modern sleep science. Commanders rotated sentries, scheduled relief, and moved units out of the front when possible. The system often failed under operational pressure. During major offensives, troops might remain awake through bombardment, movement, attack, casualty evacuation, and consolidation of captured positions. A man can continue beyond the point he imagined possible. He does not continue well. Letters and memoirs describe soldiers falling asleep while standing, marching, eating, or waiting. Men slept beside roads, in barns, on station platforms, under wagons, inside shell holes, and against packs. If a unit halted for 10 minutes, bodies lowered themselves almost automatically. Sleep became less a nightly event than a resource collected in small amounts. 5 minutes before an order, 20 minutes beneath a greatcoat, an hour in a reserve trench, 3 uninterrupted hours in a barn behind the line might feel luxurious enough to remember years later. The phrase "good night sleep" changed meaning. Good did not require softness. It required duration and the absence of immediate interruption. Sentry duty controls who may sleep. A trench cannot leave every man unconscious. Posts must watch no man's land, monitor listening points, guard entrances, carry messages, and respond to alarms. Men take turns according to rosters that vary with conditions. A sentry may stand for an hour or two, then wake the next man. The duty is dangerous not only because of the enemy, but because fatigue can defeat intention. You are awakened at 2 in the morning. For several seconds, you do not know where you are. Then the smell and cramped darkness return the answer. You pull yourself from the bunk. Your muscles protest. The man you relieve whispers what has happened. A flare went up 20 minutes ago. Movement was heard near the wire, but not confirmed. The enemy trench has been quiet. Quiet is never reported without suspicion. At the fire step, cold air meets your face. You remain below the parapet, except when observing through a protected opening or periscope. Raising a head carelessly can invite a sniper. Time slows. You watch shapes that may be wire, bodies, posts, or imagination. Water drops from somewhere behind. A rat moves along the trench. Your eyelids become heavy. Falling asleep on sentry duty can endanger an entire section and bring severe punishment. Fear helps keep you awake. So does movement, tobacco, whispered conversation where permitted, and the knowledge that another man depends upon you. But fear is not a permanent stimulant. A soldier exhausted enough can sleep despite it. You count minutes without a reliable clock. You listen for footsteps of the relief. Every sound becomes either the enemy or the man who will allow you to lie down again. When he arrives, gratitude is too large for speech. The cold creates one kind of misery. Rain creates another. Water enters trenches from above, below, and through the walls. Pumps and drainage channels struggle against it. Duckboards provide a raised path, but they shift, break, and disappear beneath mud. A man stepping beside one may sink to the knee or deeper. In low ground, dugouts flood, blankets become damp, uniforms remain wet for days, feet swell inside boots. Prolonged cold and moisture contribute to trench foot, a serious condition that can cause numbness, pain, swelling, tissue damage, and in severe cases, amputation. Armies order men to inspect and care for feet, change socks when possible, rub them, use grease or whale oil, and help one another. Orders meet reality. Dry socks are difficult to keep dry in a landscape made of water and earth. Sleeping in these conditions means negotiating with mud. You place a ground sheet between your body and the surface. You hang clothing where it might dry, then discover the air has no intention of assisting. You curl into the smallest warm shape available. Winter stiffens everything. Breath becomes visible in a dugout. Frost hardens trench walls and briefly makes movement easier, until thaw returns the ground to liquid. Snow covers landmarks and bodies, softening the appearance of a place that remains lethal. Summer replaces cold with flies, smell, heat, and decay. The front has no comfortable season, only different forms of discomfort. Lice make sleep intensely personal. They live in clothing seams and move across the body. Their bites cause itching, and scratching damages skin. Men call them chats and speak of delousing or chatting with the dark humor of people forced into intimacy with parasites. Soldiers pick lice from seams, crush them, burn them with candles, boil clothing when facilities exist, and apply powders or chemicals. Eggs survive. Freshly treated clothing can become infested again after one night beside other men. The itching does not respect exhaustion. You lie down and feel movement at the waist, neck, and armpits. A bite becomes impossible to ignore. You scratch, turn, and wake the man below. Lice are more than an annoyance. They spread trench fever, an illness associated with fever, headache, pain, and weakness. A tiny insect hidden in a tunic can remove a soldier from duty as effectively as a wound. Rats occupy the larger scale. Food scraps, rubbish, and unburied or disturbed bodies provide abundance. Some rats grow disturbingly large. Soldiers describe them moving across sleeping men, stealing food, and feeding on the dead. You protect rations, set traps, keep a weapon or boot ready, and know that the rats possess better knowledge of the trench than you do. They use tunnels, dugouts, and darkness without orders. A rat running across your chest can wake you faster than artillery. Smell forms another layer of the night. Latrines stand within or behind the trench system according to local arrangement. Men use buckets, pits, or designated areas, and carrying parties remove waste when possible. A damaged latrine can become everyone's problem after shellfire. Unwashed bodies, wet wool, tobacco, cooking, disinfectant, mud, stagnant water, explosives, and death mix in the air. Soldiers may become accustomed to smells that would overwhelm a visitor. Accustoming does not mean liking. It means the brain stops announcing every offense with equal urgency. Gas adds a different fear. Chlorine, phosgene, mustard gas, and other chemical agents force armies to develop alarms, masks, drills, and constant vigilance. A sentry may use a gong, rattle, bell, or shouted warning when gas is detected. You keep protective equipment close enough to reach in darkness. Early improvised measures gave way to more effective respirators, but masks are uncomfortable and frightening. Breathing through one during an alarm makes sleep impossible. Mustard gas can linger in low ground and contaminate clothing and soil. A man may be exposed without recognizing the full injury immediately. The smell of certain gases becomes part of soldiers' warning vocabulary, but smell alone is unreliable. The fear remains even when no attack occurs. A cough in the dugout can make everyone listen. To sleep, you must trust that the sentries, alarms, and man beside you will wake you in time. Trust is another form of bedding. Food and drink shape rest more than heroic stories admit. Hunger keeps a body awake. Warm tea can make an intolerable night briefly manageable. Rum, issued under certain conditions in British forces, may warm morale more than tissue. Tobacco offers ritual, stimulation, and a familiar action for hands. Rations travel from depots through a chain of transport to field kitchens and carrying parties. By the time a meal reaches the front, it may be cold, late, spilled, or transformed by the container. During quiet periods, units can receive surprisingly regular food. During battle, supply becomes uncertain. You eat whenever opportunity appears. A meal at midnight is not strange when your work follows darkness. You may heat water over a small brazier if smoke and position allow. The smell of tea in a dugout can feel more civilized than any furniture. Too much tea before a short sleep creates another problem, but the body does not always receive enough notice to make elegant decisions. If relief is delayed, your planned rest disappears. If food arrives just as you lie down, you choose between sleep and eating. Exhaustion sometimes wins. Men fall asleep with bread in hand. Alcohol can make sleep arrive quickly, but reduce its quality and leave the body less alert. Soldiers were not conducting controlled experiments on rest. They were using whatever comfort and routine remained available. The nightly cigarette, the shared joke, the mug held between both hands, and the removal of boots for 10 minutes belong to the practical history of endurance. Letters provide a bridge between the trench and the bed left at home. A soldier writes whenever time, light, and censorship permit. He may sit on an ammunition box, lean against a dugout wall, or balance paper on his knee. He rarely describes every danger honestly. Family members worry. Military censors read for sensitive information. Men protect themselves by turning horror into ordinary complaint. The weather is bad. The food could improve. He received the parcel. He needs socks. He hopes everyone is well. He has not slept much, but there is no need to worry. The understatement is part of the letter. Parcels bring food, tobacco, gloves, scarves, writing paper, photographs, and small pieces of a normal world. A photograph may be placed near a bunk or carried inside a pocket. Before sleep, a man looks at faces arranged in another room, under a roof that does not shake. Memory can comfort and injure. The softness of home becomes vivid enough to make the dugout worse. A soldier may imagine his own bed, then feel the boards beneath him more sharply. He folds the letter and sleeps with it nearby because paper weighs almost nothing and carries an entire life. Dreams follow soldiers into rest. Some dreams return them home. Others repeat bombardment, attack, burial, falling, or the faces of dead friends. A man may wake, shouting, moving, or unable to understand that the danger in his mind is not happening now. The term shell shock entered wartime language to describe a range of symptoms: tremors, paralysis, mutism, confusion, nightmares, anxiety, exhaustion, and emotional collapse. Early theories sometimes assumed physical damage from blast pressure. Others recognized psychological trauma. Military responses varied from sympathy and rest to punishment and accusation. Modern categories cannot be applied perfectly to every historical case, but the effects of prolonged terror were unmistakable. A nervous system exposed to shell fire does not always return to ordinary alertness when the guns stop. Some men became numb. Some reacted strongly to sound. Some lost the ability to speak or move without visible injury. Some continued functioning until a later event broke the structure holding them together. Sleep could restore part of the body while reopening memory. Nightmares made rest another battlefield. A man who slept through artillery might wake years later at the sound of a slammed door. Officers also struggled with fatigue, though their sleeping conditions could be better. A platoon or company officer receives reports, inspects positions, organizes working parties, communicates orders, and carries responsibility for men whose names he knows. His dugout may contain a camp bed or bunk, but the telephone can wake him at any hour. A runner arrives. Headquarters requests information. A patrol is overdue. Artillery needs coordinates. A sentry reports movement. A junior officer wakes to discover that the decisions expected from him exceed both his age and experience. Many officers were very young. A man barely out of school might command soldiers older than his father. Rank gives him a better blanket and a heavier fear of failing publicly. He may write orders before lying down fully dressed. A map remains near his head. Boots stay within reach. A revolver lies close. Sleep is interrupted not only by explosions but by responsibility. Senior headquarters farther behind the line can offer more comfort. Buildings, cots, meals, staff, and distance from small arms fire. This difference created resentment, sometimes fairly, and sometimes as part of the timeless frontline opinion that anyone farther from danger has forgotten reality. Distance matters. A few miles can transform sleep from a wet recess into a mattress beneath a roof. Deep dugouts offer one of the best chances for rest under bombardment. Reached by steep steps, they may be protected by meters of earth. Timber frames the interior. Candles or electric light illuminate bunks. Telephones connect positions. Some large dugouts hold dozens of men. The deeper you descend, the more the surface war becomes sound and vibration. Explosions arrive muffled but powerful. Dust shakes loose. The entrance remains vulnerable. A direct hit may collapse steps or bury occupants. Gas can sink. Fire can consume timber. A shelter can become a trap. During intense bombardment, men crowd inside and wait. The air grows hot and stale. Someone calculates the time between shells. Someone plays cards. Someone prays. Someone sleeps. Sleeping during bombardment seems impossible until waiting becomes the only activity available. You cannot remain at full terror for 6 hours. The body alternates between alarm and surrender. Some men sleep because they believe the dugout will protect them. Others sleep because no belief remains necessary. They are exhausted enough to accept whatever happens. Above, the landscape is being rearranged. Trenches vanish. Wire is cut or thrown into greater tangles. Craters overlap. Men below feel the earth move and wonder whether the entrance will still exist when the shelling ends. Then the guns change rhythm. An officer stands, equipment is checked, sleep disappears immediately because the end of bombardment may signal the beginning of attack. The attack has its own relationship with sleep. Preparations may begin days earlier. Troops move at night. Ammunition and bombs are distributed. Officers study maps and aerial photographs. Men rehearse routes behind the line. Artillery fires for hours or days. On the final night, there may be little rest. Soldiers wait in crowded trenches with equipment tightened around them. Some write last letters, some joke, some stare. Some manage to sleep against the wall while men step around their legs. The ability to sleep before an attack is not proof that a man feels no fear. It may be proof that fear and exhaustion have reached an agreement. Just before 0 hour, rum may be issued. Bayonets are fixed. Watches are synchronized. Officers repeat instructions. The barrage lifts or changes. Men climb ladders. Afterward, survivors may spend hours consolidating a new position. They dig because the captured ground offers little protection. Counterattack and shell fire are expected. Casualties require help. Ammunition must arrive. Prisoners must be moved. Messages must reach headquarters. A soldier who began the attack without sleep may continue through the next night. When he finally stops, he may sleep beside the dead, because location matters less than the body's demand. The Battle of the Somme began on 1 July 1916, after a massive Allied bombardment. British forces suffered catastrophic casualties on the first day. The battle continued for months, and the image of one morning can hide the prolonged exhaustion that followed. Units moved through trenches damaged by shelling and crowded with men, supplies, wounded, and dead. Rain transformed ground. Attacks gained limited distances at enormous cost. Relief routes became targets. Carrying ammunition forward and casualties back consumed strength. Sleep occurred in reserve positions, captured dugouts, roadside ditches, and any surface that allowed the body to stop. The noise of artillery remained almost continuous in active sectors. A new soldier might ask how anyone could sleep. A veteran might ask how anyone could remain awake. At Verdun, French and German soldiers endured a battle lasting most of 1916. The pressure of repeated rotation through a narrow, devastated zone affected huge portions of the French army. The road supplying Verdun carried men and material in constant movement. Soldiers entered, endured, and left with memories dominated by shell fire. At Passchendaele in 1917, mud became the defining image. Drainage systems were destroyed, rain filled shell holes, and movement could become physically dangerous. A man seeking rest faced wet ground, collapsing sides, and the knowledge that stepping off a path might pull him into mud deep enough to require rescue. Different battles produced different nightmares, but fatigue connected them. Artillery crews behind the front line also lived around interrupted sleep. Guns fire according to plans, calls for support, counter-battery missions, harassment, and defensive emergencies. Crews handle heavy shells, maintain equipment, calculate settings, and work amid noise capable of damaging hearing. A battery may fire through the night to prevent enemy rest. The opposing artillery does the same. Sleep itself becomes a target. Harassing fire is designed not only to destroy, but to keep roads dangerous, interrupt movement, and exhaust troops. A few shells at unpredictable intervals can prevent rest more effectively than a short, concentrated barrage. The waiting mind cannot settle. Gun crews sleep in shelters near their positions when duty allows. The concussion of their own weapons becomes familiar. Ears ring. Communication requires shouting. Men wake for a fire mission, perform practiced actions, then attempt to return to sleep while the barrel cools. War divides the night into tasks measured by orders rather than circadian rhythm. Runners occupy one of the loneliest versions of this night. Telephone lines are repeatedly cut by shell fire. Messages must travel by hand. A runner leaves the relative shelter of one position and crosses trenches or open ground toward another. He carries written orders, reports, maps, or coordinates. Darkness protects and confuses him. Landmarks have been destroyed. Mud slows movement. Flares expose ground. Artillery blocks routes that existed an hour earlier. He may begin after other men lie down and return after they wake. If he returns, back in the dugout, he collapses into whatever space remains. His boots may be too muddy to remove. His heart continues the journey after the body stops. No one asks whether the posture is ergonomically correct. Sleep belongs to whoever reaches it alive. Medical personnel sleep within another rhythm. Regimental aid posts, dressing stations, casualty clearing stations, and hospitals receive waves of wounded during battle. Stretcher bearers move into dangerous ground, often repeatedly. A quiet period may end with dozens or hundreds of casualties. Doctors, nurses, orderlies, chaplains, and transport staff work beyond exhaustion. Blood, mud, damaged clothing, cries, and urgent decisions fill spaces intended for care. A stretcher bearer may lie down after carrying men for hours, then be called again. A nurse in a casualty clearing station may sleep briefly while trains and ambulances continue arriving. A surgeon's judgment suffers under fatigue, but wounded men cannot wait for ideal conditions. The people responsible for restoring bodies are themselves denied restoration. Behind the immediate front, hospitals provide cleaner beds and longer sleep to some patients. For a soldier evacuated from the trenches, white sheets can feel almost unreal. He may be too injured, feverish, or traumatized to enjoy them. He may also sleep for extraordinary periods as the accumulated deficit finally becomes possible to repay. Rest billets behind the line are the place where sleep begins to resemble sleep again. A battalion relieved from the trenches marches toward a village, camp, barn, school, factory, or collection of huts. The word rest is relative. Training, inspections, cleaning, labor, and preparation continue. Still, distance from the front changes the body. Guns become quieter. Boots may come off. Clothing can be washed or deloused. Men receive baths where facilities exist. Imperial War Museums notes that soldiers behind the lines could sometimes enjoy a full night's sleep and a hot bath, pleasures transformed by deprivation into luxury. A barn floor covered with straw may feel magnificent. A billet in a civilian house offers walls, a stove, and perhaps conversation with people whose lives continue near war. A camp bed becomes an object of devotion. Men eat, write letters, repair equipment, drink, play games, sing, and sleep deeply. Some discover that quiet makes sleep more difficult. Without artillery, the mind supplies its own noise. Others sleep immediately and remain difficult to wake. The rotation system does not erase trauma, but it gives units a chance to recover enough to return. Return is always waiting. Different armies organized shelter and rest according to resources, doctrine, terrain, and time. The German army often constructed deep dugouts and reinforced positions with considerable care, particularly in sectors intended to be held. British and French troops sometimes interpreted these as signs of comfort, but a well-built shelter also reflected defensive strategy and engineering priorities. British frontline policy, in some periods, discouraged shelters so deep that men might be slow to reach the parapet during attack. The result could be shallower dugouts and greater vulnerability to heavy shelling. Practice varied, and soldiers improved whatever ground they occupied. French troops used abris, caves, quarries, forts, cellars, and improvised shelters across very different landscapes. At Verdun, underground galleries and forts created their own cramped worlds. German soldiers occupied concrete positions, tunnels, and timbered dugouts. Canadian, Australian, New Zealand, Indian, South African, Newfoundland, and other forces brought men from around the world into the same industrial night. The Western Front was not only British and German, and the World War was not only the Western Front. Soldiers slept in deserts, mountains, forests, ships, camps, and cities across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Conditions on Gallipoli, the Italian front, the Eastern Front, and in Mesopotamia differed profoundly. Our trench is one place inside a global war. On Gallipoli, Allied and Ottoman soldiers faced heat, flies, disease, water shortages, and narrow ground where opposing lines could lie extraordinarily close. Shelters were cut into slopes. Men slept in shallow dugouts beneath naval gunfire and artillery. The sea remained visible from positions where water itself was precious. At night, cooler air brought relief, but also work and danger. Burial, supply, repair, and movement took advantage of darkness. Dysentery weakened bodies that already lacked rest. A man could lie down exhausted and wake repeatedly because illness refused to observe the sentry roster. On the Italian front, troops fought at high altitude amid rock, snow, avalanches, and extreme cold. Shelters carved into mountains offered protection and isolation. Sleep required warmth, oxygen, and confidence that the mountain would remain still. On the Eastern Front, Distances were vast and warfare more mobile in many sectors. Soldiers slept in villages, forests, earth shelters, rail cars, and open ground during movement. The absence of one continuous trench system did not produce comfortable nights. Across the war, soldiers adapted to local misery. The specific bed changed. The exhaustion did not. Weather interacts with artillery in strange ways. Rain muffles some sounds and amplifies discomfort. Frozen ground transmits vibration. Fog conceals movement but traps uncertainty. Wind can carry gas, smoke, and noise toward or away from a position. Soldiers learn to read conditions because weather predicts work and risk. A clear dawn invites aerial observation. A moonlit night helps navigation and exposes carrying parties. Heavy rain may reduce some activity while collapsing trenches. A hard frost makes roads firmer but punishes exposed bodies. Before sleep, a man looks at the sky with practical attention. He is not searching for beauty, though beauty sometimes appears. Stars shine above flares. Snow briefly covers wreckage. Dawn colors a horizon filled with broken trees. Many memoirs remember such moments because contrast sharpens them. A lark sings above artillery. Poppies grow in disturbed soil. Men share tea beneath a sky that would belong to an ordinary summer anywhere else. The capacity to notice beauty does not mean war has become acceptable. It means the human mind continues finding something outside it. That moment may make sleep easier. Camaraderie provides another shelter. Men share blankets, body heat, jokes, food, letters, and vigilance. One sleeps because another watches. One wakes the next sentry. One checks a friend's feet. One shakes a man before an inspection. Survival becomes collective. Humor is essential. Soldiers give absurd names to dangerous places, joke about food, imitate officers, and turn weapons into characters. Laughter releases tension without pretending the danger is small. In a dugout, someone tells a story from home. Another interrupts with an improvement. A third has heard the same story 5 times, but allows it to continue because repetition is familiar. The lamp throws weak light across tired faces. Then the storyteller stops mid-sentence. He is asleep. No one is offended. Men also irritate one another intensely. Snoring, smell, noise, stolen food, wet equipment, and confined space destroy patience. A trench unit can feel like a family assembled without consent and denied every room in which to escape. Affection and anger coexist. The man whose snoring you hate may be the man who pulls you from a collapsed trench tomorrow. Privacy almost disappears. Dressing, washing, eating, sleeping, writing, grieving, and using latrines occur near other men. Rank and shelter create limited boundaries, but the ordinary soldier rarely closes a door. This affects sleep, dreams, nightmares, talking, and fear become public. A man may wake crying and no others heard. The group can respond with kindness, mockery, silence, or all three at different times. The culture of masculinity asks soldiers to control fear, but frontline reality makes fear too common to hide completely. Men recognize it in one another. Courage becomes not absence of fear, but continued action inside it. The same applies to sleep. A man who says he cannot sleep is not necessarily weak. He may have spent the night listening to a wounded soldier in no man's land. Another man sleeps immediately, not because he is brave, but because his body has shut the argument down. There is no single soldier's reaction. No man's land enters sleep even when a soldier remains inside the trench. Patrols leave through gaps in the wire to inspect enemy positions, gather information, capture prisoners, or repair obstacles. Listening posts extend forward from the main line. Men move slowly, sometimes crawling. Equipment must not rattle. A flare forces stillness. The ground contains shell holes, wire, abandoned equipment, and bodies. After returning, the patrol reports what it saw. Adrenaline remains high. Mud covers clothing. A man may be given tea, answer questions, and then be told to rest. His body lies in the dugout. His hearing remains outside near the wire. Every scrape becomes pursuit. Every movement in the trench becomes an enemy patrol. Sleep comes only when exhaustion pulls him beneath the images. At dawn, someone else may look at him and wonder how he can possibly sleep. Snipers create a quieter kind of fatigue. Artillery announces large danger. A sniper turns small daily movement into a risk. A careless head above the parapet, an exposed hand, a regular path to a latrine, or smoke from one location can attract attention. This pressure continues during relatively quiet sectors. Quiet does not mean safe. It means danger is selective. Men use periscopes, loopholes, screens, and camouflage. They move low. They learn which corner cannot be trusted. A sniper's bullet may arrive without warning and leave everyone nearby more alert for hours. That evening, the same men must sleep near the place where a friend fell. The trench remembers through geography. This bay was hit yesterday. That dugout entrance collapsed last week. The bend ahead carries a name associated with a dead officer. New men learn the map as a collection of warnings. Sleep takes place inside memory as well as earth. Burial is difficult near an active front. Formal cemeteries develop behind the lines, and burial parties work under dangerous conditions. Heavy shelling can disturb graves and bodies. In some sectors, remains become incorporated into trench walls or exposed by collapsing earth. Soldiers do not become indifferent to this. They become functional around it because duties continue. A body may be covered until removal is possible. Identification discs and personal effects matter. Chaplains perform services. Comrades mark a location. At night, the dead occupy imagination. Some soldiers report feeling the presence of fallen friends. Others refuse to look toward certain places. Superstition grows easily where death arrives unpredictably. Talismans, lucky objects, prayers, rituals, and habits offer a sense of order. A man carries a coin, cross, letter, button, or charm. He repeats the same action before lying down. He knows the object cannot stop artillery in any mechanical sense. He carries it anyway. Sleep requires surrender. A ritual makes surrender feel less unprotected. Chaplains move among these fears. They conduct services, write to families, assist wounded men, bury the dead, distribute comforts, and listen. Faith offers language for uncertainty, guilt, hope, and loss. Before battle, men who rarely attend church may seek communion or conversation. Others remain skeptical. Trench experience can strengthen faith, damage it, or leave it changed in ways difficult to name. A prayer before sleep may be formal words learned in childhood. It may be a brief request that the roof holds. It may be addressed to no one with confidence. The artillery does not answer, but speaking the words can slow breathing. Technology connects the trench while ensuring that interruption travels instantly. Field telephones allow headquarters to communicate with front positions, but cables are vulnerable. Signalers repair lines under fire. Buzzers, lamps, flags, runners, pigeons, and wireless systems supplement communication according to circumstance. A telephone in a dugout changes sleep. The ring carries orders through darkness. A message about enemy movement wakes officers and runners. A request for artillery starts activity behind the line. A report can move from one exhausted person to another until an entire sector is awake. Miscommunication is common. Noise obscures voices. Lines fail. Coordinates are misunderstood. Orders arrive late. A sleepy signaler copies details that determine where shells fall. The demand for accuracy does not decrease because the operator has been awake for 2 days. Modern people often imagine industrial war as machines replacing human weakness. In reality, machines increase the number of exhausted humans required to keep the system functioning. Aircraft add another layer. Reconnaissance planes photograph trenches and direct artillery. Observation balloons watch the landscape. Fighters contest the sky. At night, engines may pass overhead, and anti-aircraft fire answers. Camouflage, movement discipline, and smoke control matter because an observer can turn a visible detail into shellfire later. A fresh track, new timber, or group of men may reveal a position. The roof of your dugout hides you from direct sight, but not from inference. The enemy does not need to see your bunk. He needs to know the trench exists. Sleep beneath observation feels different from sleep beneath darkness. Even when no aircraft is present, the maps it helped create guide guns toward you. A typical tour in the front line might last several days, but schedules varied. During those days, the unit's sleep debt accumulates. The move to support line improves some conditions while bringing labor and readiness. Reserve positions offer greater distance but can still receive artillery. Rest behind the line provides the best recovery. The sequence sounds organized on paper. Front, support, reserve, rest. On the ground, battles interrupted. A unit expected to leave may be ordered to stay. A relief may be delayed. Reserve troops may be sent forward. Rest may include training or road work. Still, the expectation of relief matters psychologically. Men count days. They speak of the next bath, meal, billet, or uninterrupted night. Hope is scheduled. When relief finally arrives, outgoing men pass information to incoming men exactly as you received it. The cycle continues. You shoulder equipment and begin the journey back through communication trenches. Exhaustion makes the route longer. Mud resists every step. Shells target known paths. No one is safe merely because he is leaving. At the billet, you find straw on a barn floor. It is dry. You have rarely seen anything so beautiful. The first long sleep behind the line can be surprisingly difficult. The body remains tuned to interruption. A door closes and resembles a shell. A vehicle backfires. Someone drops a metal object. You wake before thought. Or the opposite occurs. You lie down and disappear for 12 hours, missing meals, conversation, and the arrival of mail. Comrades check that you are breathing. When you wake, the body feels heavier rather than refreshed. Sleep debt cannot always be repaid in one night. Muscles ache as adrenaline recedes. Minor injuries announce themselves. Appetite returns. A bath removes mud, but may reveal lice. Uniforms go through delousing processes. Clean clothing feels unfamiliar against skin. Shaving restores part of the face you remember. The army fills the day with inspection and routine, because routine rebuilds a unit. Weapons are cleaned. Equipment is repaired. Replacements arrive. Training addresses lessons from the last tour. Men who are absent remain present through empty places. At night, a bed or straw floor waits. The guns are distant. You sleep, knowing you will return to them. The objects a soldier carries show how low sleep sits on the list of military priorities and how persistently men improvise it anyway. A rifle, ammunition, entrenching tool, gas equipment, water bottle, mess tin, pack, spare clothing, rations, and personal items compete for weight and space. A blanket or greatcoat may be rolled and carried when circumstances allow. Every object has more than one use. The pack becomes a pillow. The ground sheet becomes a roof, door, mattress barrier, or wrapping. The greatcoat becomes bedding without ceasing to be clothing. Sandbags become cushions after performing less gentle work. An ammunition box becomes a seat, table, step, and occasionally the hard edge beneath a sleeping shoulder. Men adapt posture to architecture. In a narrow trench recess, you sit with knees drawn up and head against the wall. On a fire step, you lean into a corner and trust another body not to push you. In a barn, you lie shoulder to shoulder across straw. On open ground, you use the shallow side of a shell hole and position equipment within reach. The body complains at first. Hips ache, neck muscles tighten, a boot presses against the wrong angle, then fatigue removes standards one by one. You discover that comfort is partly comparison. A board is better than mud. Straw is better than a board. Dry straw is almost a hotel. Bedding can carry danger of its own. Straw harbors insects. Blankets carry lice between users. A dugout bunk occupied by one unit passes immediately to another. There is no time to replace every surface or disinfect every corner. Men sometimes warm one another by sleeping close, but close bodies exchange parasites and illness. Respiratory infections move through crowded shelters. Influenza eventually sweeps through military and civilian populations near the war's end with devastating force. Ventilation presents a compromise. Close the shelter against cold and gas risk changes. Open it and weather enters. Candles consume oxygen and produce smoke. Damp encourages mold. A deep dugout can be warmer than the trench, but filled with stale air. A sleeping man breathes the collective night of everyone inside. Sound inside a dugout differs from sound above. Timber conducts vibration. Earth filters high tones and carries low shock. A shell may be heard as whistle, impact, thump, and shower of soil. Men identify distance through sensation as much as hearing. The vocabulary becomes precise because precision reduces uncertainty. Outgoing fire begins behind you with a concussion and travels forward. Incoming fire ends near you. A shell passing overhead creates a direction the body learns before language. During a barrage, conversation happens in pauses. Men raise voices. A sentence breaks beneath impact and resumes afterward as if punctuation has become explosive. Eventually, some stop speaking. The mind reduces activity to preserve energy. A man stares at the flame of a candle, cleans equipment already clean, or rearranges a pack. Another man reads the same page repeatedly. Then someone sleeps, jaw loose, while the wall trembles. This image appears unbelievable only if we imagine exhaustion as ordinary tiredness. Frontline fatigue contains physical labor, interrupted circadian rhythm, fear, noise, hunger, cold, and emotional strain. It is not a desire for sleep. It is sleep becoming stronger than the environment. Tunnelers experienced the war beneath even the dugouts. Specialist units dug galleries beneath no man's land to place mines under enemy positions or detect opposing tunnels. Miners brought civilian skills underground, working in darkness, heat, damp, and silence. Silence mattered because sound revealed digging. Men listened through the earth with specialized instruments or direct contact. A scrape might indicate the enemy only meters away. The underground night had no dawn, only shifts. Tunnelers worked in cramped spaces where turning could be difficult. Soil moved backward through narrow galleries. Timber supported ceilings. Gas, flooding, collapse, and enemy mines threatened without visible warning. Rest chambers underground offered bunks or places to lie down, but the listener's imagination remained pressed against the wall. If enemy tunnelers broke through, fighting could occur in darkness at close range. If a mine detonated, the gallery might vanish. Men accustomed to mines in civilian life understood Earth differently from infantry above, but experience did not make burial harmless. When they slept inside the weapon they were building. Machine gun crews maintained another shared vigilance. A gun position required ammunition, cooling water for certain weapons, spare parts, range information, and a team trained to keep the weapon operating. During defensive alerts, the crew could not disperse far. One man rests while another watches. Ammunition belts are protected from mud, condensation, and cold effect mechanisms. The gun must be ready when the enemy appears. Repeated firing produces noise, heat, smoke, and physical work. Carrying ammunition boxes through communication trenches exhausts the body before the weapon begins. After action, cleaning cannot wait for a comfortable morning. A dirty or damaged mechanism may fail during the next attack. The crew works beneath weak light, then folds itself around the position. Their bed is chosen by the gun. Mortar teams and grenade specialists live with ammunition designed to explode nearby. Trench mortars fire high arcs into opposing positions. Grenades become central to raids and close combat. Storage must remain dry and protected. Men sleep beside stacks of destructive potential because distance is a luxury. A shell entering the position can turn supplies into secondary explosions. The ordinary human instinct is to sleep far from explosives. The military requirement is to keep explosives near the people who must use them. War repeatedly asks the body to treat danger as furniture. Night raids destroy whatever routine has formed. A raiding party prepares to cross no man's land, enter the enemy trench, gather information or prisoners, inflict damage, and return before the response traps them. Faces may be darkened. Equipment likely to catch or rattle is removed. Clubs, knives, pistols, grenades, and other weapons are selected for close work. Men rehearse signals and routes. Those not participating remain ready. Artillery or mortars may support the raid. Sentries watch for enemy retaliation. Stretcher bearers wait. The raid lasts minutes. Its emotional aftermath lasts much longer. Returning men report, count losses, clean weapons, and attempt to settle. Hands may continue shaking. One man speaks rapidly. Another says nothing. A third lies down, still wearing equipment, and is asleep before anyone finishes asking whether he is injured. The enemy may answer with a raid on another night. Sleep becomes a temporary ceasefire, the trench never officially signed. The famous Christmas truce of 1914 offers a rare contrast. In some sectors, British and German soldiers stopped firing, sang, exchanged greetings and gifts, buried dead, and met in no man's land. The events varied and did not occur everywhere. Football stories range from organized games to casual kicking of balls. For men in participating sectors, the reduction in danger could make one night feel almost impossible. Voices from the opposite trench belonged briefly to recognizable people rather than targets. Silence no longer meant attack. Did everyone sleep peacefully? Sources do not give one answer. Some remained cautious. Officers worried about discipline. Elsewhere, fighting continued. But the truce demonstrates how profoundly expectation shapes rest. The same ground, wire, cold, and poor shelter felt different when men believed the enemy might not fire. When hostilities resumed, the ordinary sound returned with added knowledge. The man across no man's land might have a family photograph in his pocket and the same desire for sleep. Understanding did not end the war. Leave offers the most dramatic change in sleeping environment. A soldier may travel by train from the front toward Britain or another home region. The journey itself takes time and leave is limited. Uniform, military schedules, and the possibility of return remain present. At home, the bed is familiar and strange. Sheets are clean. The room is quiet. Family members move differently from soldiers. A clock seems loud. Some men sleep deeply. Others cannot. The softness feels wrong. Silence leaves space for memory. A partner turns in bed, and the movement triggers alarm. A child wakes, and the soldier is already standing before he understands the sound. Families expect reunion to restore the man they knew. He may expect the same. Leave is too short for such work. Conversations avoid details. He says the front is not as bad as newspapers suggest, or that he would rather not speak. Relatives complain about small inconveniences, then stop when they see his expression. He feels guilty for judging them and guilty for bringing war into the room. When leave ends, the bed remains behind. The soldier returns, carrying rest and dread in unequal quantities. Prisoners of war experienced sleep under confinement rather than immediate shell fire, though camps near active fronts could still be dangerous. Captured men passed through collection points, interrogation, transport, and camps. Bedding, food, labor, and treatment varied by place and time. An exhausted prisoner may feel relief that frontline killing has ended and fear about everything replacing it. He does not know whether family has heard he is alive. He does not know where he is going or how long captivity will last. Sleep in a crowded barrack contains unfamiliar languages, guards, hunger, vermin, and uncertainty. Yet it may offer longer, uninterrupted periods than the trench. The moral emotion is complicated. Survival can feel like failure when comrades remain behind. Relief and shame occupy the same bunk. Wounded soldiers experience time through pain and sedation. A minor wound may be dressed near the line and return a man to duty. A severe wound begins a chain of evacuation through aid posts and hospitals. Morphine, anesthesia, shock, blood loss, infection, and fever alter consciousness. Sleep may be impossible or indistinguishable from collapse. A man wakes beneath a roof and asks first where his unit is. Another wakes to discover a limb missing. Another sleeps for days between procedures. Hospital trains and ships move bodies away from the front. The rhythm of wheels replaces artillery. Nurses maintain night watches. Clean bedding becomes associated with fear because it belongs to surgery and bad news. For some, injury ends frontline service. The knowledge brings relief, grief, guilt, and uncertainty about the future. For others, recovery leads back to the unit. The hospital bed can be both rescue and road. The war also affects sleep among civilians near the front. Families live in cellars during bombardment. Towns receive soldiers, refugees, wounded, and military traffic. Children learn which sounds require shelter. In occupied regions, requisition, curfew, forced labor, and uncertainty enter homes. A civilian bed may stand beneath a roof damaged by the same artillery shaking the trench. Farther away, families sleep beside the possibility of a telegram. The knock at the door becomes its own explosion. News lists, letters, and rumors interrupt ordinary nights. The soldier's inability to sleep does not remain at the front. It travels through correspondence and absence. Animals share the military night. Horses and mules move artillery, supplies, ambulances, and transport. They require food, water, shelter, and rest. Shell fire terrifies them. Mud injures them. Their loss can immobilize a unit. Handlers sleep near animals whose movement provides warning and companionship. A horse reacting to distant sound may wake a man before any human alarm. Dogs carry messages, locate wounded, guard positions, and offer affection. Pigeons carry communications when lines fail. The industrial war depends upon living bodies far beyond the infantryman. A soldier sharing warmth with a military dog is not an image of sentimental escape alone. It is two exhausted animals using one another to endure the night. The morning after bombardment begins with assessment. Damage visible in dawn light may be greater than expected. A section of parapet has collapsed. Wire is cut. A dugout no longer exists. Telephone lines are broken. Craters occupy paths. Men count one another. Names are called. A soldier who slept beside you yesterday is missing. Perhaps he went to another post. Perhaps he is beneath the collapsed entrance. Work begins before certainty. Shovels move earth. Stretcher bearers arrive. Runners carry reports. The trench must be restored because the enemy does not suspend operations for grief. This necessity creates the appearance of emotional hardness. Men perform tasks because tasks protect the living. Feeling waits, returns later, or hides for decades. At the next opportunity, the body asks for sleep as if nothing happened. Sometimes sleep is the only place grief can enter. Let us move through one complete trench day, not because every day followed the same timetable, but because routine explains how sleep was fitted around danger. Before dawn, a runner or non-commissioned officer wakes the section for stand to. Men climb from dugouts, collect rifles, check gas equipment, and take positions. The coldest part of night often arrives just before morning, when whatever warmth clothing held has been spent. You stand facing a horizon that is slowly becoming visible. Eyes search wire and shell holes. Fingers resist fine movement. No attack comes. After stand down, you clean the rifle. Moisture, dirt, and neglect can cause failure. An officer or sergeant checks the position. Breakfast arrives if supply has succeeded. Tea is prepared. Men speak more easily once daylight reveals the familiar shape of the trench. Day duty is assigned. Sentries continue. Some men repair the trench under cover. Others carry messages or prepare food. Movement above the parapet remains dangerous. If the sector is quiet, those who worked at night lie down. You enter the dugout around mid-morning. The man leaving the bunk has warmed it. You place the pack beneath your head and close your eyes. 10 minutes later, artillery fires behind you. You recognize it as outgoing and remain still. A telephone rings below. It is not for you. Boots pass the entrance. Someone drops a mess tin and receives several opinions about his ancestry. Sleep arrives. At noon, a working party is ordered. You are awake again before the body reaches deep rest. Timber must be moved to a damaged bay. The task takes 2 hours. Enemy fire remains sporadic. You eat part of a ration, return to the bunk, and sleep for another hour. A rat investigates your pack. You wake, move the food, scratch lice, and lie down again. Late afternoon brings preparations for evening stand-to. Weapons and equipment are checked. The sky darkens. Every man returns to readiness. Once the dangerous transition passes, night duties begin. Rations and supplies move forward. A wiring party prepares. Sentry rosters are confirmed. You work until midnight, stand watch from 2 until 3, then receive the bunk for perhaps 2 hours before dawn. On paper, you slept several times. In the body, it feels as if you never completed one night. Multiply this across days, and the front-line expression becomes understandable. Narrowed eyes, slow movement, abrupt irritation, and the ability to fall asleep anywhere. Sleep quality depends upon whether a sector is active. Newspapers and later histories focus on great battles. but much of trench service occurs in quieter periods, punctuated by danger. A quiet sector can allow regular meals, repair, patrol, and more predictable rest. It can also create complacency. Units new to the front may first enter a relatively quiet position to learn routines. Veterans teach practical survival. Never stand in that opening. Keep equipment there. Listen for this shell. Do not use a light near that corner, and wake me before stand 2. The advice rarely appears in formal manuals with the same urgency. It is local knowledge, passed from one tired man to another. Then the sector becomes active. Artillery increases, raids occur, relief schedules change. The carefully learned sleep pattern collapses. Frontline life alternates between boredom and terror, and sleep must navigate both. Boredom makes eyes heavy on sentry duty. Terror makes them impossible to close afterward. Soldiers attempt small forms of control. A man selects one corner of a dugout and keeps it orderly. He hangs a photograph. He carves a shelf. He labels a box. He repairs a leak no one else considers worth the effort. These actions make the place temporarily his. Territorial comfort matters when the army controls almost every hour. Some dugouts acquire names, signs, jokes, curtains, stoves, or salvaged furniture. Officers may create mess spaces underground. Men collect objects from ruined houses, not always with permission, and turn them into tables or bunks. Domesticity grows in the middle of destruction because the body insists upon home-like patterns. Tea is made, socks are hung, cards are played. A candle stands where a bedside lamp should be. The trench is never home, but men repeatedly build the smallest possible version of one. Music reaches rest in several ways. Soldiers sing on marches, in billets, and during quiet periods. Familiar songs coordinate movement, release emotion, and bring home into collective memory. Instruments appear behind the line. Military bands, concert parties, gramophones, and informal performances entertain troops. A song heard before sleep can replace artillery in the mind for a few minutes. The lyrics may be comic, sentimental, patriotic, or bitter. Men adapt popular songs with their own words. The war's humor often sounds cheerful because singing despair directly would be too exposed. A ridiculous chorus lets everyone admit exhaustion without explaining it. Afterward, silence feels less empty. Reading offers another escape. Newspapers produced for troops, novels, magazines, religious texts, and letters circulate. A book may be read by several men until pages loosen. One person reads aloud while others mend clothing or rest. The chosen story need not be serious. Adventure, romance, comedy, and familiar characters provide a world with problems that end at the final page. You read beneath poor light until words blur. The book lowers onto your chest. Sleep begins inside another person's sentence. The reader beside you retrieves it before it falls into mud. Sleep and discipline remain in tension. Armies require alertness and cleanliness, but soldiers require recovery. An officer who drives exhausted men through unnecessary work damages readiness. An officer who permits too much looseness risks failure during attack. Good leadership recognizes when rest is operationally essential. Poor leadership treats tiredness as moral weakness. Soldiers remember the difference. Orders against sleeping on duty are severe because consequences can be severe. At the same time, officers know that men deprived of rest will fail regardless of punishment. Rosters, reliefs, and rotation are attempts to make biology compatible with defense. War never fully succeeds at that negotiation. The calendar loses ordinary meaning in the trench. Sundays, birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays may pass beneath the same routine. Letters announce events weeks late. Seasons are recognized through mud, frost, heat, flies, and the changing length of light. A soldier may calculate how many nights he has slept in the front line since arriving. He may stop calculating because the number offers no comfort. He remembers instead one unusually good sleep: the farmhouse loft, the train carriage, the afternoon beneath a tree during training, or the hospital bed after evacuation. Memory preserves rest because rest is rare. When a soldier is killed during sleep, the event violates even the limited expectation of safety a dugout provided. A shell penetrates a roof. Earth collapses. Gas enters low spaces. Men die without reaching weapons. Survivors may become unable to use the same shelter, or necessity forces them back inside after bodies are removed and repairs made. The front has limited real estate. The bunk remains where it was. Another man lies down. This is not indifference. It is the brutal economy of protection. A functioning dugout cannot remain empty as a memorial when shells continue. The memory moves into the next sleeper instead. Men sometimes describe premonitions, dreams, or unusual feelings before death. Such stories grow naturally in communities exposed to random loss. A soldier dreams of home and dies the next day. The dream is remembered. Another dreams the same thing and survives. The coincidence disappears into ordinary life. Families later search letters for signs. The last sentence becomes meaningful because it is last. A casual mention of sleep can sound prophetic. We should treat supernatural claims with care while respecting the emotional work they perform. When death appears without understandable fairness, Patton offers comfort. The trench is full of statistics. Grief insists upon a story. By 1918, armies and soldiers have accumulated years of experience. Defensive systems are more complex. Tactics, weapons, communication, and medical response have evolved. The final offensives restore movement to fronts long associated with fixed trenches. Movement does not restore sleep. Men march through nights, occupy unfamiliar ground, and advance beyond prepared shelters. A deep dugout is useful only until the line leaves it behind. During rapid movement, troops sleep in fields, villages, captured positions, and roadside camps. Supply strains to follow. Influenza spreads through exhausted populations. Victory and collapse approach together. When the armistice begins on 11 November 1918, guns stop according to a declared hour. The silence is remembered as profound. Some men cheer, some remain still, some cannot believe it. The front has trained them to distrust silence. That night, soldiers sleep without expecting an enemy attack for the first time in years. The absence of shell fire does not guarantee rest. The body carries the guns inside it. Returning home is not a simple awakening. Veterans bring altered sleep into civilian houses. Nightmares, startle responses, pain, lung damage, hearing loss, grief, and anxiety remain. Prosthetic limbs and scars change posture. Unemployment and social expectation create new pressures. Families may not understand why a man walks at night, checks windows, avoids crowds, or reacts to thunder. He may not understand it himself. Wartime medicine has names for some symptoms and inadequate answers for many. Some veterans find stability through work, community, family, veteran organizations, treatment, and time. Others struggle for the rest of their lives. There is no universal aftermath. The war ends officially. The nervous system keeps its own calendar. Cemeteries across the former front create a different kind of ordered silence. Rows of graves replace the improvised burials of battle. Names, units, ages, and inscriptions restore individual identity where war reduced people to casualty numbers. Visitors walk through these places and often comment upon peace. Grass grows, trees return. Birds occupy skies once filled with observation, aircraft, and shells. Beneath the calm are men who spent their final nights trying to sleep in mud. The cemetery's quiet is not the quiet they knew. So how did First World War soldiers sleep while shells exploded above them? They used dugouts, bunks, fire steps, barns, reserve trenches, cellars, shell holes, and open ground. They kept uniforms and equipment close. They took turns watching. Units rotated between front, support, reserve, and rest whenever battle allowed. They learned the sounds of weapons and woke for the noises that mattered most. They slept in fragments during daylight after working through darkness. They slept because exhaustion overpowered noise. They slept because another soldier remained awake. They slept badly, briefly, and sometimes deeply enough to ignore a world shaking around them. The artillery did not become harmless. The men became adapted enough to survive its routine until routine changed. Their sleep was not peaceful. It was functional. Return now to the upper bunk in the timbered dugout. The hour before dawn is approaching. Your sentry duty is finished. The blanket remains damp, the air stale, and the boards hard. None of that requires further consideration. You lie down fully dressed. Your rifle rests within reach. The man below shifts and makes space for mud falling from your boots. Somewhere behind the line, a heavy gun fires. You know the shell is outgoing. Another gun answers. Then another. The earth gives a small, familiar tremor. Your eyes close. A rat explores the entrance. Water drips at a steady interval. Someone whispers a message outside. The sounds remain near the surface of consciousness, waiting to become important. For now, they do not. Sleep pulls you beneath them. 20 minutes later, a hand touches your shoulder. Stand to. There is no feeling of completion. You sit, collect equipment, and follow the others toward the fire step. The sky is beginning to pale. Across no man's land, another exhausted soldier is climbing from another dugout. He also slept in his clothes. He also listened to shells. He also wants tea, warmth, and one uninterrupted night. Neither of you can see the other clearly. The guns can. One detail remains easy to underestimate: the weight of anticipation. A bombardment already happening gives the body a problem to endure. An expected bombardment gives the mind an unlimited space in which to imagine. Rumors move quickly through a battalion. The enemy is massing troops. A prisoner mentioned an attack. A mine may be ready beneath the sector. The artillery registration has changed. Extra stretchers arrived. Leave has been cancelled. Some rumors are accurate. Others are trench weather produced by anxiety. No soldier can confirm enough information to separate them completely. Before lying down, you hear that an attack may come at dawn. The officer cannot verify it. Sentries are strengthened. Equipment remains ready. Every minute of sleep now feels like a decision. Close your eyes and risk waking late. Stay awake and meet a real attack exhausted. You choose sleep because discipline has assigned someone else to watch. The choice is not passive. It is trust placed in the roster. Clothing controls warmth, but also movement. The uniform's wool retains insulation when damp better than some materials, yet repeated wetting makes it heavy. Puttees wrapped around the lower leg provide support and protection, but require care. Greatcoats become saturated. Leather equipment stiffens. At night, a soldier may add every available layer and still feel cold through contact with the ground. Shared shelter reduces wind. A brazier or stove offers heat where fuel, smoke, and safety permit. Too much heat creates condensation and reveals a position through smoke. Men improvise with newspapers beneath clothing, extra socks, scarves from home, sandbags around feet, and body heat. A dry cap pulled low can matter more than a decorative item of uniform ever intended. Hands present a problem. Gloves protect warmth but reduce dexterity. Weapons, tools, buttons, and equipment still require precise use. A sleeping soldier may tuck hands beneath arms or between knees, then wake with numb fingers when duty calls. The transition from sleep to action is physical violence against the body. Warmth gathered slowly disappears in seconds. Summer sleep has opposite pressures. Dugouts become close and hot. Flies gather. Water is rationed according to supply. Uniform regulations and protection limit how much clothing can be removed. The smell of the battlefield intensifies. Decay accelerates. Dust replaces some mud, coating skin and equipment. Men sweat through wool and then chill when temperature drops. Mosquitoes and other insects add bites according to region. The same blanket that felt inadequate in winter becomes unbearable in heat and remains too useful to discard. War stories often select one season for dramatic effect. Soldiers endured the return of all of them. The quality of sleep also depends upon identity and position within imperial armies. Labor units, colonial troops, transport workers, and non-combatant corps did not receive equal recognition or conditions. Racial hierarchy influenced pay, billets, medical treatment, leave, and opportunity. Indian soldiers served on the Western Front early in the war, facing a climate and equipment system not always prepared for their needs. Troops from the Caribbean, Africa, China, and other regions performed labor essential to ports, roads, depots, and transport. Their nights belong to the same war even when later memory placed them outside the familiar trench picture. Chinese Labor Corps workers repaired roads, unloaded ships, dug, salvaged, and handled dangerous material behind the lines. Artillery and aerial attack could still reach them. Their camps had rules, routines, and hardships rarely included when the question asks how soldiers slept. The front depended upon thousands of people whose beds were farther from the parapet, but not outside exhaustion. Women also worked within range of war. Military nurses served in hospitals and casualty stations. Drivers, telephone operators, relief workers, and civilians maintained systems around the front. Some facilities came under shelling or air attack. A nurse on night duty watches rows of men unable to sleep because of pain. She moves quietly, adjusts dressings, records changes, and prepares for another arrival. At dawn, she lies down in quarters where the sounds of the ward continue in memory. Her exhaustion does not resemble the infantry sentries in every detail, but it belongs to the same machinery of interrupted rest. Men on naval vessels experience shell fire and sleep differently. The Western Front depends upon shipping, blockade, troop transport, and naval protection. Sailors sleep in hammocks or bunks according to vessel, maintaining watches day and night. An alarm sends them to action stations. Engines, machinery, and the movement of the sea continue beneath sleep. Submarine danger makes an unseen attack possible at any hour. Troop ships carry thousands of soldiers who may spend nights crowded aboard, thinking about the front ahead. The World War surrounds sleep on land and water. Memory changes trench sound after the war. Veterans interviewed decades later can reproduce the names and rhythms of shells with surprising precision. Some recall humor first, some recall cold, some remember that one could sleep almost anywhere. The passage of time may soften one detail and sharpen another. Memoirs written soon after battle differ from recollections shaped across 50 years. Neither is automatically false. Memory preserves meaning as well as sequence. When a veteran says he slept sitting on the fire step, the statement carries more than posture. It tells us that the body accepted a ledge inside a killing system as a place of rest. That adaptation is the real answer to our question. Modern sleep advice asks for darkness, quiet, a stable schedule, controlled temperature, a supportive mattress, and reduced stress. The trench offers darkness interrupted by flares, noise without limit, schedules controlled by duty, temperatures controlled by weather, boards or mud, and stress built into the landscape. Yet humans do sleep in terrible conditions. Sleep pressure accumulates through wakefulness until the brain enters rest despite environment. Short episodes can occur so quickly that a person fails to recognize them. Microsleeps become dangerous during sentry duty, driving, weapon handling, and movement. Adaptation does not make the sleep healthy. Fragmented rest reduces recovery. Repeated arousal keeps the body under strain. Chronic deprivation affects immunity, cognition, and emotion. The soldier's ability to sleep is impressive because it reveals resilience. Their conditions remain damaging because resilience is not immunity. The man beside you, who appears to sleep perfectly, may be paying a hidden price. He rises slowly. He forgets an instruction. He becomes angry over a missing spoon. He stares at nothing during breakfast. He laughs too hard at an ordinary joke. The unit absorbs these changes until a threshold is crossed. A sergeant gives him a simpler task. A medical officer evaluates him. A friend covers one watch, or no one notices until he can no longer continue. Military history counts divisions, guns, miles, and casualties. Fatigue works beneath those numbers, influencing decisions from the smallest patrol to the largest offensive. An army is only as awake as the people operating it. So the next time a photograph shows soldiers sleeping beside a trench, do not mistake stillness for safety. The photographer captured a temporary arrangement between biology and war. Outside the frame, someone watches. Supplies move, guns wait. The sleepers wear boots because an alarm may come. Their rifles remain close because the bed has no protected boundary. They are not demonstrating that shell fire was easy to ignore. They are demonstrating that exhaustion can make the impossible necessary. There is one more part of trench sleep that photographs rarely show: the argument a soldier conducts with his own senses. A harmless sound can wake him because it resembles danger. A dangerous sound may fail to wake him because exhaustion has pushed him too deep. Survival depends on learning a language of noise while the body is trying to shut that language out. An incoming shell and an outgoing shell do not sound identical. Different calibers announce themselves differently. Men invent nicknames for particular projectiles, partly because naming a terror makes it easier to discuss. A sentry may hear the launch of a mortar, shout a warning, and throw himself down before the bomb arrives. Another night, distant guns continue for hours with no direct threat to his section, and men sleep beneath the same thunder. The distinction is never perfect. Wind changes sound. Buildings, slopes, and cloud reflect it. A new battery opens fire from an unexpected position. A shell falls short. The nervous system remains alert because certainty is impossible. This is why silence can be worse than noise. Regular shelling becomes a pattern. When it stops abruptly, soldiers wonder what is being prepared. Is an attack coming? Are the guns moving? Is gas about to drift across? A quiet night may give the body better conditions for rest while giving the imagination more room to work. The safest sound is not always the softest one. It is the sound whose meaning a tired man believes he understands. Sleep also depends on the small engineering of personal space. A soldier places his steel helmet where he can reach it without searching. He keeps boots on unless conditions allow otherwise. He may wrap puttees carefully around his lower legs, arrange a greatcoat beneath his shoulder, and use a pack as a pillow. A waterproof sheet separates wool from wet earth when one is available. These choices appear trivial beside artillery, yet they decide whether 20 minutes of rest becomes useful or miserable. A buckle under the ribs can keep a man awake. A rifle placed badly can slide into mud. A candle too close to timber risks fire. Wet socks left unchanged invite injury. Men trade methods. Fold the coat twice, not once. Keep tomorrow's socks inside the tunic so body heat takes the worst chill from them. Do not place food beside the wall where rats can reach it. Cover a reflective object before dawn. Sleep with your feet toward the exit if space permits, because climbing over other men during an alarm wastes seconds. The trench becomes a school of exhausted practicality. Its lessons are passed in murmurs from veterans to replacements. A replacement's first night can be especially difficult. He has heard stories during training, but stories cannot reproduce the physical depth of gunfire. The blast is not only heard, it presses against the chest and vibrates through timber. Loose earth falls from the roof. A candle flame bends. Someone nearby continues eating as if nothing unusual has happened. That calm may reassure the newcomer or frighten him more. If experienced men ignore the explosion, perhaps the danger is routine. If danger this large is routine, what has he entered? He watches how others react. If they duck, he ducks. If they remain still, he tries to remain still. By morning, he has begun learning local knowledge no map can provide. Which corner floods first? Which parapet attracts snipers? Which dugout leaks? Which route is least exposed? And which gun sounds close but is actually behind the line? Weeks later, another replacement arrives. The once frightened man now explains where to put a blanket and when to wake for stand to. War has converted him into part of the environment. Weather adds another timetable. Rain does not need to fall directly into a shelter to disturb sleep. Water enters through soil, drips along timber, collects beneath duckboards, and raises humidity until blankets feel damp. Frost can harden mud into a temporary floor, then thaw it into a trap. Snow may soften the appearance of the trench while making movement bright and visible. Wind finds every opening in clothing. Men stuff paper beneath tunics for extra insulation. Newspapers, letters, and sacks become material against cold. Straw can improve a billet until it fills with insects. A brazier warms a dugout but consumes oxygen and produces smoke. Ventilation prevents one danger while allowing winter air inside. Summer brings different misery. Heat thickens odors, encourages flies, and makes enclosed shelters oppressive. Men sweat beneath equipment and then grow cold when the temperature falls after dark. Corpses and latrines become harder to ignore. A soldier may choose the exposed air of the trench over the close interior of a crowded dugout, accepting one risk to escape another. There is no perfect season for sleep at the front. Every season merely changes the method by which rest is interrupted. The army attempts to manage fatigue through routine, because routine is one of the few controllable things. Duties are listed, watches are divided, reliefs are timed. Meals arrive when transport and enemy fire permit. Men clean weapons, repair defenses, carry supplies, and then take whatever rest remains. On paper, a unit moves between front line, support line, reserve, and rest. In practice, the words can deceive. A support trench may receive heavy shelling. A reserve position may demand endless carrying parties. A rest camp may be close enough to hear the guns and busy enough to prevent sleep. Still, relative safety matters. One uninterrupted night in a barn can restore more than several nights in a trench. A bath, clean underwear, and dry socks may improve morale as powerfully as a speech. Soldiers become grateful for ordinary conditions they once considered inadequate. The meaning of comfort contracts. A roof that does not leak is luxury. A floor without mud is luxury. 4 consecutive hours belong to another world. Not every army, unit, or sector experiences the same war. Some trenches are carefully revetted and comparatively dry. Others collapse repeatedly. Some fronts remain active. Others are quiet for long periods. Colonial troops, labor companies, medical personnel, railway workers, and artillery crews sleep under different pressures, although all serve the same industrial conflict. Men arriving from warmer climates face European winters with equipment and expectations that may not fit their experience. Labor units perform dangerous work near the line while receiving less attention in popular memory. Their sleep may occur in camps, depots, dugouts, or improvised shelters after long physical shifts. Language also shapes the night. Orders pass through accents and across empires. Prayers are spoken in different traditions. Songs carried from India, Africa, the Caribbean, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and many other places enter the soundscape of a European battlefield. The Western Front is not a single row of identical British soldiers in identical trenches. It is a vast human system whose members bring different bodies, memories, foods, habits, and ways of seeking comfort. By the final year of war, many soldiers have become experts in temporary sleep. They can rest in transport, beside roads, beneath wagons, in captured shelters, and on the floor of ruined houses. They do not possess a secret technique. They possess accumulated fatigue, practiced preparation, and the knowledge that the next opportunity may not come soon. The skill is both useful and tragic. It allows the army to continue functioning. It also reveals how completely military necessity has occupied the body's private hours. Tonight, in our imagined trench, the guns have not stopped. A flare rises and fades. Water moves below the boards. Someone whispers the time to the next sentry. Somewhere behind the line, horses shift in their harness and an ambulance travels without lights. You pull the greatcoat closer. The wall is cold against your shoulder. Your boots remain on. Your rifle is within reach. Nothing about this resembles a bedroom, yet the body begins to surrender. The sounds separate into those that require action and those that can be left to someone else for a few minutes. Your breathing slows. The trench continues around you. This is how soldiers slept while shells exploded above them. Not peacefully, not safely, and rarely for long. They slept because another watch, another march, another carrying party, and another dawn were coming. They slept in fragments guarded by comrades, protected by earth, and purchased with exhaustion. The remarkable fact is not that war taught men to ignore danger. It is that the human need for sleep remained stronger than the battlefield's attempt to abolish it.